Hey, what's up, good people? Welcome back. Today I'd like us talk about classes. Let's create a new folder. Let's call it classes. So we're going to go through introduction of classes, what classes are, what they do a little bit introduction and do some code here and there to take us through classes. So let's do classes. So I'd like us to start explaining what classes are in a layman's language. So to get us started with this, I'd like us to have classes explained in this type of way, right? I'd like us to take an example of a physical world. What happens in a physical world? So in a physical world, we have material items, right? We have material items like wood, metal, plastics, metal, wood, etc. Right? So for us to understand, for us to get to understand our physical world, we'd like to group these items in a higher level objects, right? So we'd say instead of us having the plastics, metals, wood, so we'd say chairs are made of wood, so we'd have the higher level of in a chair, tables, TVs. These have groupings of plastic and metal. Some have wood as well. So basically we'd have to group things in a high level for us to understand the world we live in. In the same manner, we have lower levels. A program is made of lower level items. Just as we've said, in the physical world, we have plastics, metals, and wood. So in program as well, we have lower level items, right? For example, variables, functions, etc. Right? For us to understand this, we'd group this in a higher level. So for a higher level of this reduce a higher level of this, we'd say we have objects, right? In a program, we'd have objects. So what is an object in program? In a program, an object is a grouping of data and operations. So in a program, an object is a grouping of data and operations. I hope that makes sense. When you say data, we have variables in data. I hope that makes sense. Going with this, operations, that can be performed. I hope this makes sense of what. I hope that's better now. I've zoomed it out. I hope that's a bit clear now. That grouping. Yeah. So let's in an example, a program contains or consists of variables and functions. And functions. Right. As well, they can have methods. Right. In a high level thinking, we'd prefer to think in a high level objects, for example, maybe restaurants and hotels, right? So programmers think mostly of the operations that can be done with objects, such as giving hotel or restaurant a name or adding. So that's what can be done with an object, right? So within classes, there are a lot can be done in a class, right? And among things that can be done in a class is abstraction, which as well can be hiding information or information hiding, right? Which in other sense we say encapsulation. Let's get to that one. So this is whereby when you interact with an object, at a higher level, when we do this, which makes us allowing lower level when we do this, we allow lower level internal details to remain hidden, right? I hope that makes sense after giving an example of what happens in the higher class. After we've talked over, for example, in this scenario here, when you interact with an object at a higher level, when you say a higher level like a chair, so in a chair we allow the inner details to be hidden, like the nails, like the plastics used, like some part of the woods used, they remain hidden. I hope that makes sense in what an abstraction is. So in that we have done what is called encapsulation, right? So encapsulation is the information hiding, right? So for example, you can say an oven. An oven, right? In an oven, we have it cooking food. So we have food compartment and a knob to control the heat, right? Food compartment and a knob, right? So what happens is we are not able to enter inside and control the heat and the likes and the, so basically those are the hidden components of an oven, right? So objects support abstraction by hiding the entire group of function and variables, exposing only certain functions to a user, right? So in programming object, what does object support abstraction? By hiding the entire groups of functions and variables. And do what? And expose only the functions files. Yeah, I hope that makes sense. So on the deeper side of the abstraction or hiding data, we have an abstract data type, right? Abstract data. What does this happen? What is this when you talk of an abstract data type? It's basically a data type whose creation and update are constrained. Specific well-defined operations. So that's an abstract data type is. So a class, what we're talking about, can be used to implement a data type. Hope that makes sense. When we after having known what an abstract data type is, then you can be able to know what, and you can be able to know that a class can be used for as an abstract data type. So that's a brief introduction of what classes can do, what classes are. So in our next class, we'd like to talk about grouping of data, the likes, and more of classes as we get started. I hope that's a good introduction to classes, and let me know what you think, and see you in the next one.